When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there everybody, hello there, episode 701 of Join Up Dots. Can you imagine it? Can you imagine it recording over about 800 hours of stuff, and I was still having a little excited jig before we actually started talking about it. And I suppose that sort of says a lot about life really. If you can find a thing that makes you want to still jig after you've done it for 800 times, that's probably your thing. And I think today's guest is one of those ladies who probably does have a little jig before she goes out to work in the morning, because she's been an entrepreneur since 1982, and she's an expert in helping companies develop the people side of their business. And when you speak to her, you just know that she loves people. She is a co-founder and president of Performance Support Systems, a global software company based in Virginia, where their products are used by leadership coaches and consultants, as well as internal learning and development professionals, to help managers become more effective leaders. Now, there's one truth in my mind, that someone who develops all the leadership skills whilst climbing up the ladder quite often kind of loses those skills and finds them very difficult to maintain. Now, is it the isolation that causes the issues, or perhaps the climb that wears them out? Well, whatever it is, our guest will have the answer, I'm sure. She and her business partners have worked together for 25 years, and many of their clients and resellers have done business with them for 20 years plus, and she understands what's required to build the loyalty and commitment that leads to repeat business and referrals. She takes pride in getting feedback like this, which is from a reseller who worked with her company since 1994. Long words here, but we'll go for it. Performance Support Systems is the epitome of the client-centered, high-integrity, high-support company with world-class products you could look for a lifetime and not find its equal. Wow. So strong relationship building, high-level customer service, and a commitment to build the people and not just the business is the ideal way to operate. Or is it? Does she look back at her career and think, wow, home run every single time? Or instead, has it been a gradual climb of struggles, mistakes, huge failures, and everything else that entrepreneurs have to overcome? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots with the one and only Meredith Bell. Good morning, Meredith. How are you?
Oh, David, I am great. I'm very excited to be with you today.
We were having a little flirt beforehand, weren't we, Meredith? You got up early and you decided that you were going to flirt with a UK podcaster. Was that on your bucket list? Have you written a life list and that was one of the things you can now tick off?
Actually, it's only one of the countries I'd like to do that with.
You want to flirt across the world. This is a new business plan you've created here, Meredith.
Well, flirting is probably going a little bit too strong, because I do have a wonderful relationship of 35 years with my husband. But I love getting to know other people, and I just absolutely love your energy and what you're doing in the world.
I wasn't going to talk about flirting, but now I've talked about it, I'm going to bring it up. Isn't flirting, as long as it's kind of a professional respect, a great way to bridging the gaps? You know, I've always been a big flirt. I've never taken it any further. I've been married to my wife, 25 years now. Wouldn't take it any further, but I like a bit of flirt. I find it's a good way of breaking the ice and building very strong relationships.
I think that it sort of depends on how you define it. But to me, having fun with another person, so you laugh together and, just enjoy getting to know each other. I think that that's really a key, not being too serious, because that's something I've had to work on all my life, is not being too serious and having fun. And so if I can remember that, I guess you could classify that somewhat as flirting. But it's just, forming a connection with another person that's sincere and genuine. I think that's really the key for me.
So were you a serious little soul as a girl, 5-year-old, 6-year-old Meredith? Were you all frowns and homework?
Well, I don't don't know that I frowned a lot, but I was very serious. I think I absorbed that, from my parents, the idea that you are responsible for doing good work, that sense of, excellence and a work ethic. And so I mean, I'm sure I know I played as a kid too, but I think there's just been this serious side of me that I've had to become more aware of so that I smile more. And, that's an interesting thing about frowning. I don't know if it's so much frown as just deep in thought and, you know, uh, just not taking a frivolous approach, I think, to whatever it is I've taken on.
Because there's a lot of ladies in America, Meredith, that can't frown. They can't move their faces at all, can they? So if you can, you're doing well.
Well, that's right. I've decided I'm never having plastic surgery. I like having my natural wrinkles and creases and whatever else may come. It's just a part of who I am.
Good on you. I've been through some places in America, and it's not so prevalent in the United Kingdom. I suppose it's going to start going that way. But all the women look like they're in a wind tunnel. Their faces are so pulled back. It's they can't smile. They can't even dribble out the corner of their mouth. It's not a good look, is it?
No, it isn't. It doesn't look natural.
So let's talk about yourself and your business, because you are a people person, and I find more often than not the entrepreneurs that really love the business side don't forget that it's about people. I find that seems to be a key thing, and the ones that I've spoken to that seem to be all about the money, they don't seem to have that same kind of longevity. It's very much quick spurts, make their money and then look for something else to go for it. You've been doing it since 1982. What is it about the entrepreneurial life that keeps on bringing you back to it every day?
I have to say I love it, even though when you were talking earlier, I'm definitely on the side of having made lots of mistakes and scraped my knees and all kinds of things. But what I love about it is it's up to me. I'm the one responsible for the results that I get. In my earlier years, my first career was teaching fourth grade, and I found that the routine was kind of boring. And so I decided to get my master's and work in the administration level. And then what I found was that it was so political and bureaucratic. I didn't have the patience for what was required, to play games. It just was antithetical to who I am. And so I jumped out in 1982 from a job that, many people within the educational setting thought, hey, that's a nice, secure place to be,
Yeah.
prestigious enough. But I just needed to be my own boss, I think, and be out on my own, no matter what the risk. I think that was really the key. The unknown looked better than the known at that point, no matter how risky it might seem. And so that's one of the things I love about being an entrepreneur is I get to choose every day what direction I'm going to go today to try to build our business. And I do have my two business partners. We work in a very collaborative way, but they're also very supportive of me. So I don't have to ask their permission to do something. I check in with them and I run ideas by them. But my role is sales and marketing, and they really give me free rein. And I just love that because I'm by nature a very responsible person. So I don't, waste time. I work on trying to be focused and experiment. I love experimenting too, trying different things to see what works and what doesn't, learn from it. And so I don't have restrictions on me by, a larger type of organization and structure. And I love that freedom.
So your business partners, if they sort of phoned you up and you went, oh, I'm just going to sit and watch a box set on Netflix for 2 days and, I'm just going to draw the curtains and not do anything, would they go, oh hang on, Meredith's having a moment here? Or would they just go, oh, yeah, fair enough, and let you do it?
Oh, they would let me do it because they know what a strong work ethic I have. And if I said I need a couple days to do this, they would figure I'm able to, monitor what I need in terms of a mental or physical break from things. So, that's one of the cool things, David, that I love the most about working with them. After all these years, we have a very strong trust, respect, and love for each other. And so it's like in a good marriage relationship. If your partner says, I need this, then you honor that and you give them the space to do what they feel like they need to do.
Yeah, but people don't, do they? Internally, your supporters, your business partners, they might be going, Meredith's looking a bit rough at the moment. I think she's overdoing it. But inside, Meredith doesn't want to look like she's got any faults and she wants to just keep on pushing through. And I'm sort of saying this because I can put my hand up and say I've been through this myself, where looking back at certain situations in my life, I should have gone, look, guys, I need 2 weeks off, just leave me alone, but you don't want to look weak. So how do you sort of actually monitor that low energy in your life? Because it's all right saying it, but you don't want to let people down, do you?
Well, that's true. I probably am worse about letting myself down. And what I value about them is, and the relationship we have with each other is we really listen to each other's tone of voice as we're talking to each other, because we talk to each other all the time. We're not in the same office. We work remotely in different locations, but we are good at holding up the truth to each other. So even if I don't recognize, hey, I need a break, one of my partners might say, you sound a little tired, you sound a little down. Do you need to take an extra day off? You need a 3-day weekend. So we really support each other in that, give each other permission to just be real. And I think that goes back to a willingness to be vulnerable. I don't have that. I think with them, I just feel so safe to be who I am. And that's one reason I love working with them is we have just, we know we're not going to be judged or criticized. It's a safe place to be. It's embracing of who we are and appreciating of who I am. And they know that I'm a very driven person. And so I am going to push myself sometimes too hard. And so they will say, it's time to take some time off. So it's more them pointing it out to me when I need it than me recognizing it first.
I want to see a photo of the 3 of you, or the 4 of you, whatever, snuggled on a sofa under a duvet with a big bowl of Doritos, just watching Netflix for 2 days. That's what I want, Meredith, and I hope you don't let me down.
I wish I had one like that. I've got a picture of us together, but not doing that particular activity.
Maybe in the future. So your business, how did it come about? Because I was on your website looking up and down, and what I liked about it, it's very much about strong performance. But you are aware enough that there are strong performances for different roles. There's strong performances for different individuals. So there was a whole platform of different sort of variations of a similar theme. What was the first one? Where did it all start right in the beginning?
It started with actually doing training and consulting for client organizations. When I started my business after leaving education, I got to thinking, I've always loved being a teacher and coaching people, and I did that with teachers in my latest job there. So I decided I had something to offer to companies in helping people communicate better with each other and get along, because so many issues come up, not around the technical side of the business, but around the people side. So that's what I focused on doing. So I got into things like leadership development. What does it take to be a good manager and bring out the best in other people, and working with individuals on teams to play nice together. And then I met Denny, one of my business partners. He was doing a similar thing on his own. And we found that we had, in similar interests, compatibility, values. So we merged our 2 companies together. And for a number of years, we did that kind of training and coaching. But then we decided we really wanted to have a greater impact. And so we decided to transition into being a software company where we were no longer the ones going out and delivering services. We were creating products to help with assessing where people are, how they could improve, and then giving them tools to actually make those improvements on the job.
And what sort of
And
year
so,
was this, Meredith? Or what sort of year did you do the software bit?
the software was in 94 that we introduced our first
So it
one.
was early days.
Floppy diskettes was the first version.
Yeah.
That tells you how far back we go.
So that was a bold, now it's pretty commonplace to sort of think of that way of doing it online. But in those days, I can't think of many people that were doing it. Did you see other people and think, that's a good idea? Or was it just something that you thought was right to do?
Well, it was really born out of a sense of frustration because the first tool that we created was one that we needed ourselves as consultants,
Right.
but didn't exist. It was called 360-degree feedback, and it existed back then, but the companies that had products were rigid items. It was a way of doing a survey about an individual rather than the company. So it was for getting feedback for a manager on how the direct reports, his peers or her peers and her boss saw them. So it was not just getting the annual review from, the one person who managed you, but instead getting input from people around you. And the frustration was with the kinds of surveys that existed back then and what we wanted to have instead. So we just set out to solve a problem for ourselves that as we were doing it, we thought, this is something we really want to make available because it doesn't exist. So we really, when I think back on it, we were pretty audacious. We didn't know what we didn't know.
Well, that's the best place to be, isn't it? If you don't know what you don't know, then you can't go wrong, really, can you, in a funny way?
Well, that's right. And we just thought, we're going to go up against these other folks because what we have to offer is different. And we just had a belief back then that other people probably had the same frustration as we did. And in fact, that's what we discovered. But what we needed to allow for was time to educate people. And I think anytime you're introducing a new product or a new service, you have to factor in that there's an educational component to it if it's if it's disruptive from what already exists, because people are familiar with that. And they're, as you know, I'm sure, most folks are kind of reluctant to change from what they know. So anytime, what we learned is anytime you're introducing something new, you have to really seek out the people that are open to new and different and better ways of doing things. So you get your early adopters who then get on your bandwagon and start helping to promote you.
Oh, seek me out, Meredith. I love a good change, I do, even if the change isn't really required. I just like to sort of feel like things are moving on. Don't go towards me wife. My wife hates change. You can barely get her out of the same pajamas that she's been wearing for the last 30 years. That's how much she doesn't like change, But I think it's true. And what you did very well in that was that you had an annoyance in your own life and you sought that out as a solution to yourself. And that is how so many businesses can be built quite readily. When someone who's listening to this podcast and they're at their job and they think, this is a stupid way of doing it. More often than not, there's other people with that same fault, but you just need one person to sort of bring it to the fore. That's the majority of businesses, isn't it? You solve a solution.
Exactly. And then our more recent product, the Strong for Performance that you mentioned, that also came out of a frustration, but a different kind. And in that case, we were tired of seeing all of these companies that spend collectively billions of dollars every year on training people, but it doesn't translate into improved performance back on the job. And we knew why. And the key reasons are and Denny is the one who just has studied this for decades. What has to happen in your brain to learn a new skill or master a new habit? And it's the repetition and practice, because there's physical connections that have to get wired up in your brain in order for a new habit to replace an old one.
Yeah.
And so we decided that we wanted to create an online system that would provide that kind of practice, reinforcement, and coaching to allow that to happen, so that we would see people better able to create these habits that they wanted, but and the follow-up after training that just wasn't happening.
The reason I chuckled was I was a trainer for maybe 20 years, and I can count on one finger the amount of training that I did that probably had any relevance to anything. It was just like a tick box culture. People would come into the room, I'd do my very best, and they go, "Oh, that was great training, really good." And you'd go out and you say, "Right, how are you going to sort of implement that? I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that." And then you'd come back 3 weeks later, they hadn't done any of it. And, that is a huge problem, isn't it? Which is why the online training is so powerful now, because you can sort of get systems in place that makes you do it on a daily basis to sort of actually embed it into your way of life. But a lot of training, I earned very good money for many, many years, but I think I could have just stood in a empty room and just spoke to myself, really.
Well, that's the thing. When you enjoy, delivering good, valuable content, you probably could, although I doubt you'd have been happy for very long, because you wanted people in the room that you could have an impact on.
No, there was a lot of horrible people in my rooms. Yeah, did you have those ones where you think to yourself, you're not listening, you don't even want to be there? They sort of slope in and they plonk themselves down with their arms folded, and it's just like you've taken them away from their work. They've got 2 days of work to do now because they've got to catch up when they get out of the room. Have you had those?
Of course. Anyone that's been involved in conducting training in the corporate world where people are sent to training, you've had to deal with that. And of course, I love it when people raise their hand and say, pick me, because they're the ones that are going to be most excited about, using the ideas that are shared. But it's really true, not just in a classroom setting, but in general. There are, only a certain percentage of people that really are eager to learn and grow. Other people may not. Part of it may be just raising their awareness level, but some folks it goes back to the whole thing of change and not wanting to get out of their comfort zone, because a lot of times it's fear. A lot of times it's just closing their mind. I'm doing something and it may or may not be working for them, but the concerns about making a shift are greater than where they are right now.
Well, let's play some words now, and then we're going to delve back into that fact, because I think that is key to the whole episode. Here's Jim Carrey.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
Now, at its core, that message was that his dad didn't want to change because he had excuses built up around him. But Jim wants to change, his dad doesn't. But unless you change, nothing ever will get better, will it? And more often than not, it will get worse.
That's correct. It is actually correct, because the world around us is constantly changing. So if we're not willing to adapt, we're going to be stuck, and we can be left behind, because there's no guarantees. Life just happens and different events occur, and we have to learn to recognize. I think part of the resistance is we let our egos get in the way, and we start saying things like, well, this shouldn't be happening. So we deny it. And instead, if we can learn to just embrace the reality that's coming at us and think about, how can I use this in a way that will help me move forward? I think that's really, it's a shift in how we think about things.
It's like Blockbusters. Do you remember Blockbusters video? I was watching
I
Netflix
do.
last night,
Mm-hmm.
and I was saying to my wife, and this is going to alienate me to anybody under the age of 30 probably, but when I was a kid, you used to want to have a video. You used to have to go, and you'd go, oh, I'll watch a video this afternoon, and you'd have to ride around to the video shop and spend hours picking up the boxes, looking at them and deciding what you want. And then once you'd watched it, you had to rewind it and then take it back to the oh, it was an effort. It was an effort. And when you look at where we are now and the technology that was around which Netflix are using, you kind of wonder why Blockbusters didn't change. And was it ego, as you say? Was it an unwillingness to change? Did they think they'd already cornered the market? Because change is the only thing that keeps us vibrant, isn't it? You've got to change, otherwise you end up like the dinosaurs, you end up like Blockbusters.
That's so true. I think part of it is a willingness to look around you and see what's going on. If you put on blinders and you're just focused narrowly on what you're seeing in your own experience, in your own world, you really, miss out on what's happening. And so you don't anticipate changes that are coming and how you might need to adapt in order to either as a company survive or thrive going forward. I just think it's so critical to be open to input that might contradict your current position, but again, not feeling threatened by it, but welcoming it with open arms because it's going to help you make better decisions going forward.
Now, you must have been in positions, because you've been, doing this since 1982, but where you have been blinkered and you've been so focused on what you're doing that you haven't looked around at the Netflix coming behind you or whatever it is. Have you had any moments when you've had to start sort of picking up the pace, pulling your skirt up and having a little run?
Yes, that's the nature of the business. I think it's pretty hard to always be the cutting edge. We were the cutting edge in 1994 with that product that we brought out. And then, different things started happening in terms of strictly online products and different features that other competitors had that ours didn't. And so we were constantly having to look at, what is it about us that we can improve, and what is it about us and our products we want to keep as is, because those are a core element that define us. And I think that's another piece that's really important, as we go forward, whether it's someone that has a service business or, is working inside of a company, but to recognize and honor those things that set us apart. So we stay authentic, we stay real about those pieces, and we're not trying to be a copycat of someone else, because that's when we can lose our competitive advantage. When we think about what is it, for instance, one of our strengths is the way we provide service to people. We want them to have a great experience with us. We don't want satisfied customers. We want people that look forward to calling us, whether they need tech support or they need additional information. We want them to be glad they talk to us when they hang up. And so that leads to making certain kinds of decisions about how our company will operate and what we're going to be doing, and how we service people. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. It does make total sense. So the interesting thing that's coming out of this, and it sort of takes me back to the introduction. In the introduction, I was talking about the leadership skills, that quite often a great leader will somehow become a blunt leader further down the line, where they just, they find themselves in isolation, or it's just too much effort. But you're constantly reinventing yourself all the time, or at least trying to sharpen up your edges. Does that make your business able to fight off competitors, or does it not really matter anymore? Is there so much abundance that as long as you're providing a product, you will get customers?
I have to say I have an abundance mentality. I don't really worry about our competition. And I mean, everyone has competition, and part of how I, stay motivated and get up every day is recognize that there are lots of people out there that have never heard of us yet,
Yeah.
aren't aware of what we do. And so my goal is to reach out to people and meet them. And I think it's important to share something that is a guiding core value for me. And that is, and it's why I enjoy marketing and sales, because my approach to it is I'm here to form a relationship and to be of service and to see how I can provide value to the people I interact with. So when I am, on a phone call with someone, it's not waiting for an opportunity to start talking about our product. It's asking questions to learn more about what's going on in their world and what they're experiencing. And it may have nothing to do with our product. I may be able to, help them in something they're trying to do, let's say using LinkedIn, because I've been studying how to use LinkedIn for a couple of years. So I know a few things about that. So if I can help someone else be more effective in using that, then I'm happy to do so. And so they sense that, David. They sense that I am not trying to put pressure on them. And so we have this wonderful conversation that leaves them hopefully feeling somewhat enriched because of ideas I've shared or questions I've asked them. And that leads to a good relationship that down the road may lead to them doing business with us or introducing me to someone that they feel needs our product. So that whole approach has been fabulous for me because it's so aligned with who I am and how I like to show up in the world. And so throwing away some of these, sales scripts and other approaches to making sales to be able to form relationships that are congruent with how I like to interact with people has just been wonderful. And it's why I stay excited and motivated. And getting back to your question, it's why I'm not concerned about so much what our competitor is doing, because I really do see there's a place for all of us in the world.
I agree with you. I tell you what, Meredith, do you know there's only one podcast in the world, and that's my one? There's not one other. Now, okay, if I go into iTunes and I look around, there's about 20 million other things, but I'm not bothered about anyone. And I've had some people say to me, I've got a training platform which I teach people how to not just podcast, but market a podcast and do sort of more of a business around. And a couple of people have said to me, oh, yeah, well, we're doing our own thing. And I've said, well, do you want to share ideas, because I've got some good ideas and you might have good ideas. No, it's all right. We'll keep it as ourselves. And I think it's just, I just think it's abundance. I think there's 7.8 billion people out there. You need about 200 each year. Sell them 500 quid of stuff. You're making six figures. Brilliant. And I don't see that there's any issue with helping out other people and sharing information and stuff. But people do, don't they? It's like there's secret squirrel and they get their little nuts and they pull them tight to them and they dig little holes all over the place. Just let us see your nuts. That's what we want, Meredith. Let us see the nuts.
Well, it's so interesting that you're saying that, David, because on LinkedIn, when I connect with someone that initially looks like they could be a competitor to us, I don't let that bother me. In fact, when I, send a message out to them, I'll say, it looks like we offer some of the similar kinds of things, but I would still love to have a conversation with you because there may be opportunities where I could introduce someone to you where our product's not a good fit and vice versa. Because it's true, everybody that offers something, whether it's podcasts or, products or services, there are differences among them. And I think the more if you think of it as clench fists, the more we open our hands and say, bring it on, let's share the wealth. It makes a huge difference in the kinds of people that we attract in our lives versus, clenching our fists tighter and shutting ourselves in and closing our bodies and saying, no, I'm fine, thank you. I don't want to share ideas because you might steal mine. I think there's a whole different way in how we feel about ourselves and the world when we have that abundance versus scarcity mindset.
I tell you the ones I don't like on LinkedIn. I get a few of these where somebody comes along and says, David, thank you for connecting with me. And I connect with anyone. Anyone sends something through to me, I accept them. And they come through later and they say, what I would like to do is have a call with you so that I can improve the way that you're operating your business. And I think, you don't know how I'm operating my business, and maybe you can improve it or maybe you can't. But I don't like that. It seems a bit icky the way they come through and do that, Meredith.
I totally agree with you. I think, and it goes back to, do you want to be of service and value to people? And if so, then you don't make assumptions that what you have is automatically something they need. And that's what you're talking about. Somebody that says, oh, I can do this for you, when they don't have a clue about you at this point. And I believe in being honest with people. I had a fellow that wrote to me, and he used all caps for things. And I just said, I wrote him back and I said, I have to say what you have written to me came across very spammy. And before I would want to, have a conversation with you, I would want you to put in writing how you feel, a relationship with me would really be of benefit to both of us. Trying to be polite, but not blowing off, because who knows, there could be an opportunity there. I tend to err on the side of being open, but once
know, Meredith, don't you? You could have blown him off. You knew that wasn't going to go anywhere, surely. The way somebody does it right at the very beginning, it's professional, isn't it? You're not going to take that forward.
Well, in this case, I didn't, because of the next thing that he did. It just totally destroyed any trust that could have possibly been built. So that was it.
And what did he do? Did he send naked photos of himself or something like that?
No, to me it was worse. He approached somebody else and represented himself to have a, business relationship with me that didn't exist. So if you lie or misrepresent something, you're done with me. That just is not going to fly.
Oh, you sound like the Godfather then. I could imagine you sitting in a big chair, stroking your cat, and that was frightening talk. Frightening talk. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to play some talk now that wasn't frightening and was hugely motivational, and we're going to hear it again. Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
So when you listen to those words, and of course we play them on most of the shows that I record, do they sort of hit home? Do you reflect on your own life when you're listening to them?
Definitely. Because, going back to when I left education to start my own business, David, I didn't have a single course on business. I had no idea what I was doing. And there was no internet back in 82. There were barely PCs. And so I just had to, study, learn, but I trusted that I would discover as I went what I needed to do. And it was the same way when, I met and started working with one of my business partners. And then we brought on the third person, I just had this sense that this is all going to move us forward, and I will still be able to do the kinds of things I want to do. Because the driving force for me has always been make a difference in the lives of other people. And then when we started the software company, again, we'd never done that. And so it was trusting our ability to figure things out and have the confidence to move forward. And I think those are the common themes for me in each of these major choices that I've made in my life, and combining that with some of my natural strengths for teaching and coaching. that I've been able to apply in these different situations that I have found myself in through my own choice. I think that that's been just a key for me in making progress. I don't have to know, in other words, how these are all going to come together. I love what Steve Jobs said. But the other thing is looking back and seeing where some of these dots have been and now piecing them together. For example, another thread along the way has been my depth of caring about people and genuinely being concerned about them having a better life for themselves, whatever that looks like. And so through assessments that I've taken, I came to realize that one of my core strengths was love. And I had not thought about that on a conscious level with some of these other things that have happened in my life. But again, connecting those dots in the past and seeing how that desire to be of service, to help people, and genuinely care about them has served me well. And now what I'm doing going forward is, with that awareness, is thinking about, with each conversation I have, how can I do that even more powerfully, so that the impact I have, not from an ego perspective of how can I be so great, but is more humbling, really. How can I focus on serving this person in such a deep way that it has a profound impact on how they go into their own future from here on out? So the whole connecting dots thing for me is very significant.
It's interesting you speak about the individual and, making a personal difference. At the same time as America is going through huge changes where that seems to be, certainly from my point of view, and I might be totally wrong, that might be, as far away from where it's ever been as possible to be at the moment with the way that things are being run. Do you see that happening? Do you see that the actual individual is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller against the industry?
Well, this is such an interesting time in our country right now. And I do see there's a lot of anxiety around so many different things these days. And I felt that way myself at times after our election in 2016. And what I came to realize was, I have no intention of ever running for politics. So therefore, I'm not going to be having a stage upon which I might be able to influence, policy and legislation. But what I can do is, on an individual basis, with each person that I come in contact with, do my best to make their particular world a little bit better. That's all I can really hope to do. With the choices I've made about not going into public service, in that way. So I think that, to answer your question, if each of us can look at what can I do to make my world a little bit better, and the people whose lives I come into contact with, I think that's where we can have a grassroots positive impact on what's happening.
I agree with that, and it's a kind of metaphor of join up dots, but it's like a picture. You're looking at a lovely picture, but as you get up closer and closer and closer and closer, it's just a series of tiny little dots. And I see that with us. You're a dot, I'm a dot, every single person's a dot. And if we just, help each other, then what a powerful way it's going to be. And you get further and further away. You couldn't fight the power if we all acted on helping the next dot along, could you?
I love that. I think that that's a really excellent way of talking about this.
I should go into politics, shouldn't I, Meredith? I'm going to go in. I'll tell you what, I'd be the world's worst. I struggle with quality control of what I talk about. Even if my brain is saying, don't say that, David, don't say that, more often than not, it pops out. So I'd be the world's worst. But hey, there's some bad uns out there at the moment anyway. Do you think, Meredith, being honest, Meredith?
Oh, my. David, I think that I think you're making a better impact with your podcast than trying to get it. You would be frustrated, and I don't think you would thrive in that environment.
I would just run around having fun and abusing my power. That's what I would do, Meredith. I would abuse my power in every single way possible. Well, this is the end of the show, and this is the part that we call the Sermon on the Mic, when we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back in time and speak to the young Meredith, what age would you choose and what advice would you give? Well, we're going to find out, because I'm going to play the theme, and when it fades, you're up. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
With the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
This is a message to my 21-year-old self graduating from college. There are a few things I want you to know as you go out into the big world of life and work. The first thing is, I want you to commit to playing big. You know, a lot of people are satisfied with doing the minimum. Don't be like that. You have a responsibility to use all of your talents and abilities for maximum impact in the world. Don't let the fear of criticism or disapproval hold you back from taking risks and pursuing new opportunities that present themselves to you. And I want you to focus on serving and loving other people, not focusing on what they can do for you. Because when you do this, you'll stand out and you'll experience greater satisfaction than you ever imagined was possible. And as part of that, I want you to practice kindness every day, because everyone has challenges, and you might be the only person who brings a positive spark to their life on that particular day. And you know what? You need to remember to be kind to yourself too. Don't allow that inner critic to take over when you fall short of the expectations that you have for yourself. Instead, I want you to think of everything you do like a scientist would when approaching an experiment in the lab. You're simply testing a hypothesis, so don't take it personally or get discouraged if the results aren't what you expected. It's just data. So don't get attached to a negative meaning when you're interpreting what happened. Just use that information to get better the next time. And finally, and this is so important, I want you to have more fun, no matter what you're doing. Lighten up and don't take yourself too seriously. Life is meant to be enjoyed, and that means being full of joy, even when you face adversity. You have the inner strength to handle anything that life throws at you. So just go forward with confidence and do your best in the world.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff there, Meredith. What's the number one best way that our audience can connect with you?
Well, as I said, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. So just look for me on LinkedIn. I would be delighted to connect with folks there. And our website that you had referred to earlier is Strong for Performance. That's strongforperformance.com.
Great stuff. We'll have all the links on the show notes. Meredith, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up the dots and connecting our pasts, it's the best way to build our futures. Meredith Bell, thank you so much.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure.
Meredith Bell. She's a lady that you could just see the passion. She loves what she's doing. She loves connecting. She's not trying to sell in a kind of icky way. Buy. She's just building relationships. She's providing value, and she is supporting. And that is how it works. People don't like the pushy approach. And for all you pushy people out there that connect with me a lot, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I don't like it. Just seduce me. Seduce me and rub oil into my body and you might get something. Anyway, until the next show, thank you so much for listening to this one. And we will, well, that was episode 701. I guess the next place is 702. See you again. Cheers. Bye-bye.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.